Return to Raw, Chapter 9. Win and I have a brilliant time, slipping and sliding between the pools and jumping off rocks. Eventually we find ourselves in a small river running towards the tangled forest. We pile giant leaves on top of each other to make a raft, then climb on. This is how we're carried into the tangled forest. We lie back on our leaky raft. The canopy of leaves is high above us, blocking out the sun, and the only light comes from buds that burst from vines. These buds glow and flicker all around us as our raft drifts deeper into the dark forest. "I'm glad you're back, mate," says Win, punching me on the arm. "Me too," I say, punching him back, but only gently, because our raft is very unstable. When we get caught in a root, we get out and start to walk. We wander between the thick trunks. It's so hot that our clothes dry quickly, and we keep ourselves going by munching on the biggest blueberries I've ever seen. At least I think they're blueberries. They're more purple than blue, and they taste like donut. "We need to be quiet now," whispers Win. "This is where the unicorns hang out." He stops in front of a line of tree trunks. At first I think they've grown close together, like the ones at the edge of the forest, but then I realise that these trees have been deliberately tied together with vines. I push a knot of ivy to one side and see words scratched into one of the trunks. "No boys allowed." "Is this the Lost Girls' camp?" I say. Win nods and puts a finger to his lips, and I follow him to the entrance of Treetops. At least, it was the entrance to Treetops. Once a huge wooden door stood here, but now it's lying smashed on the ground with plants growing through the cracked wood. It was Croaky who did this. Last time we were here, Stella told us that he had set fire to their camp and forced them to abandon it. It's only now that I'm standing here that I understand how total the destruction was. "Horrible, isn't it?" says Win. I nod, a painful lump forming in my chest. I can't believe we stopped visiting Raw for so long. We didn't come for 3 whole years, and that's why Croaky was able to take over and do this to Treetops. We can never let him do something like this again. Treetops used to be amazing. A higgledy-piggledy collection of tree houses linked by rope bridges and ladders. It was a playground in the sky. Stella's hut was best of all, of course. It was built so high in the canopy that I never went up there, but I remember watching as Rose climbed the wobbling ladder and disappeared into the leaves. Now all that's left are the burnt skeletons of tree houses. "It's all gone," I say. "Not completely," says Win. "I'll show you." He runs to a tree, finds a sooty rope ladder, and starts to climb. Soon we're pulling ourselves onto blackened planks. It's the floor of a tree house. The walls have gone, but the plank floor seems solid enough. Win drops to his stomach and I lie next to him. We peer at the ground below. "This is the best unicorn spotting platform in Raw," he whispers. We keep as still as possible, listening to insects and watching spots of light dance across the forest floor. We don't have to wait long. Soon we hear twigs snapping and leaves being pushed aside. "Are you sure it's a unicorn?" I ask, my heart speeding up. "I mean, how can you tell that's a unicorn and not a scarecrow?" "Because scarecrows don't have horns," says Win. And just then a large blue unicorn steps out of the trees. It's got a scattering of silver spots over its coat, large milky eyes and a ridiculously shaggy mane. It's beautiful, but its horn is spectacular. It's silvery and sharp and glows as bright as the moon. I watch, hardly daring to breathe, as the unicorn bends its head and starts crunching something off the forest floor. Still chewing, it raises its head and fixes its pale eyes on us. "I think it knows we're here," I whisper. Win scoffs. "Course he knows we're here. He would have sniffed us out from miles away. Unicorns are super good at smelling." "Can we get closer?" I ask. "We can try." I follow Wynne's lead, and slowly we make our way back down the ladder to the ground. The unicorn watches us the whole time. I reach out my hand in what I hope is a friendly gesture. "Here, unicorn," I say, wriggling my fingers. "He's not a cat, Arthur," scoffs Wynne. "If you want him to come closer, then you'll need to give him something he likes. I'll try and find some apples." Then Wynne darts off and out of the camp, leaving me alone with the very majestic and slightly scary unicorn. Still munching, he stares at me. "Hello," I say, taking a step closer. "I'm Arthur Trout." Then, thinking it might impress him, I add, "Master of Raw?" It doesn't impress him. In fact, he rolls his eyes. In case I sounded too cocky, I kneel down on the floor to show I'm subservient to him. Then something amazing happens. The unicorn kneels down too, like he's copying me. To see if I'm right, I dip my head. The unicorn dips his head too. Slowly I get up, but the unicorn stays where he is, his nose buried in the long grass, his broad back low to the ground. Does he want me to sit on him? Suddenly I think how brilliant it would be if Wynne came back and found me trotting around the camp on a unicorn. Also, Rose thinks she's it galloping across Raw on Prosecco. But what if I had a unicorn as my personal form of transport? In seconds I've imagined it all. The unicorn and I have become friends. He's called Ronaldo, and he only eats from my hand. I step closer. Ronaldo doesn't move, so I step round his side and gently settle on his beautiful silky back. "Arthur, what are you doing?" Wynne has come back, clutching an armful of apples, but he doesn't look impressed. He looks horrified. Just then the unicorn swivels his head round and glares at me. "He wanted me to ride him," I say, wondering if this was such a great idea. I knelt down, and so did he. Then he tucked his head in and waited for me to climb on his back. "Is you sure he wasn't just pulling that juicy worm out of the ground?" I draw in a sharp breath. Wynne's right. Hanging out of the corner of Ronaldo's mouth is a fat, wriggling worm. I didn't know unicorns liked worms. Anyway, yesterday you said if we found one we could ride it. A female unicorn. They're really friendly, but male unicorns are massively aggressive, so if I were you, I'd get off his back right now. Nice and slow. I nod. I don't need telling twice. The unicorn has started to growl and it's giving me evils. Also, from up here I can see that his horn is very sharp indeed, kind of pointed, like a spear. I go to get off him, but in a flash he lets out a whinny of outrage and leaps to his feet, lifting me up in the air with him. To stop myself from falling, I grab hold of the closest solid object. His horn. This does not go down well. "Let go of his horn!" screams Wynne as the unicorn starts bucking around the clearing. "Let go of his horn!" But I can't let go of his horn. It's the only thing stopping me from being thrown off. With an enormous whinny and twist of his head, the unicorn finally tosses me off his back. I shoot over his head and crash down on the ground. For a second, stars dance in front of my eyes. I blink them away to see the unicorn bearing down on me, his horn pointing towards my chest like a spear. "I'm sorry," I yell, trying to scramble away from him. But the unicorn is too fast, and his horn is too long. There's no escape.